So if you're looking to learn a little bit about video activities, that's what this session is going to be. While you're joining, like we did in the welcome session, go ahead and pop in there where you're from. Love to hear about it, especially what grade. This is going to be primarily geared towards, well, not primarily, it is going to be geared towards secondary social studies. So if you teach middle school or high school social studies, or you want to learn about what we're doing with video activities for those two areas, you're in the right place. I'm going to get started here very quickly. So we want to be able to maximize our time. And again, I'll introduce myself in case you joined the welcome session late. My name's Brian. I'm joined by Kelsey. I'm a former we're both former teachers. I taught middle school for 12 years just north of Cincinnati. And Kelsey?
Yeah, I taught in San Ramon Valley Unified School District in Danville, California, but I live in Temecula now, and I'm so excited to be able to be here today. So we're pumped.
And I'm lucky to have Kelsey with me. So Kelsey's going to be watching the chat there and helping out with some questions that arise. And again, I'll kind of go over some of the housekeeping details before we hop into the agenda. But just don't forget, you've got the Q&A there at the bottom. If you've got a question for TCI staff, that's what that's for, is that Q&A. If you're just wanting to share ideas, and I definitely want you doing that, or you want to share a comment or a reaction, you can do that too using the chat. Turn on the closed captioning. I would encourage you to do that. I will warn you in advance, I'm going to play a video here in just a few moments from now. I'm going to play a video, and I'm going to turn the closed captioning on from my end when I'm actually playing the video. So I don't know if it will duplicate it on your end or not yet, but I do want to give you a heads up because I know some people like to see the words on the screen. My kids watch videos that way here. I've got 19 and 20-year-olds, and that's how they watch videos. They turn on the closed captioning. So that's a little bit of the housekeeping. Now, I'm actually going to start with an icebreaker. So you can do this in one of two ways. You can use your smartphone if you've got it handy there with you, or if you want to just open up a new tab on your browser and you want to join to answer the question that I'm going to be popping up there. You can do it one of two ways. And in a moment, that question as our icebreaker is that you're going to be voting to show which activity that you would enjoy the most. So again, you're going to either scan that QR code, or if you go to menti.com and you put in the code 27314806, then you're going to see my poll. And I'm going to go ahead and project it here live so that we can do this here together. And here is your question. So which of the following would you enjoy the most? Maybe it's taking a road trip across the United States with economic nerds, exploring a haunted museum with your pals, not named Shag and Scoop, watching old political ads on a vintage TV set with a bag of Funyuns. Who doesn't like Funyuns? Work as a screenwriter for a movie set in the Great Depression. You could visit Civil War historic sites managed by the National Park Service, glide over deserts, soar mountains, and cross the surging rivers as you explore the Silk Road. You could also work as a curator in a museum devoted to the Industrial Revolution, or crack the case of an art theft as you take a river cruise down the Danube. So you've got lots of options there. I'm going to give you just about another 10 seconds or so to put in what would be your first choice. You don't need to rank them. You can just select one and then hit submit, and it will automatically put that one up here. So we can see right now, for example, that a lot of people are really interested in the Civil War parks. That's awesome. Love to see that.
That is awesome. I will say, Brian, I feel like there's too many choices. Like there's so many. And I've even seen that in the chat too, Matthew saying he'd choose 4 different ones. So I think you've really given us a conundrum here.
A conundrum. It is a treasure trove, a cornucopia.
Are we going to try to like one up each other with our vocabulary today? Because I would lose. Like a
I will stop while I'm behind. Good. So we can see that you've got all these choices. Well, here's the good news, folks. The good news is you and your students can do each and every one of those things. You don't actually have to choose, because that's kind of what the video activities are going to do. So here's what I'm going to do over the next 40 minutes or so. What we're going to be covering, we're going to break the mold of using video with students with video activities. I'll also share with you the when, the where, and the how you use video activities with your students. And we'll also give you a little sneak peek of some coming attractions and answer any questions that you have. So again, thank you so much for joining. Let's get right into it. And I'm going to begin with I think when I think of teenagers today and watching videos, the kinds of videos that as educators we love and enjoy, but we got to face it, we're not normal. I love documentaries. I love videos about the national parks and things like that. I love all of that. But sometimes when you put those kinds of videos that we love as social studies teachers in front of our students, they look like this. Students watching the typical video in class. Yes, their eyes may or may not be open, but they're very drowsy. Well, we want to get away from that. And the idea is with video activities from TCI, they're going to look like this right there. That's almost a little creepy in a way, right? But students.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Kelsey, you're saying no?
Yeah, but we're excited, but that's okay. We're excited.
We're excited. So we want to turn it from this into that. And that's the whole idea with the video activity. Now, I can't think of a better way to do it than for you to experience one together. So we're going to do it live right now. And we're going to do one of those things that potentially you might have voted for. Not everybody wanted to go in the haunted house. Maybe some of you are afraid, and that's okay. Kelsey and I are going to be with you if you need a chaperone by you. But we're going to step into a haunted mansion as we learn about the Enlightenment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this. We're going to go actually live. You should be able to see it on my screen. Kelsey, can you just verify that you see my screen right now for History Live, the World through 1750?
We are right there with you. Yes.
Perfect. So just some background, and I'll get back to this after we go through the video activity and kind of focus a little bit more on the nuts and bolts, is I'll share with you where to find these and how to be able to use them. But just note, it's going to be at your lesson overview page is where you're going to find video activities. It'll be in the flexible lesson options. I'm going to click the play button here so that it goes nice, big, full screen. And this is exactly the same kind of experience we want the students to be able to have with it too. Now, in this video activity, just some background so that you know what we've done as a class and where we're headed. We've been learning about Europe. We've gone through the scientific revolution, and we're now at the precipice of Europe entering into the modern era. And so we're going to be studying the Enlightenment, and we're going to do that through the guise of a haunted mansion. So we're going to open this with a hook. We want the students invested into the topic. And so let me play the video. It's about 1.5 minutes, and you're going to see the hook as it is revealed.
Nestled in the backwoods of the English countryside is the Midnight Museum of Enlightened Thinkers. It is a strange name, fitting for such a strange place. The museum is home to famously haunted portraits of intellectuals who lived during the Enlightenment in the 17th and 18th centuries. In life, the people portrayed were influential, and, especially in the case of women scientists and intellectuals, truly groundbreaking in their achievements. At the outset of the Enlightenment, monarchs still had absolute power over the average person in European countries. However, around the end of the 18th century, many monarchies came to an abrupt and violent end. By then, intellectuals had challenged the rule of monarchs for over 100 years. I think you should meet these intellectuals yourselves. Admission to the Midnight Museum has and always will be free. Alas, exiting will cost you You'll need to pacify our haunted portraits before you're free to go. You wouldn't want to end up like one of them yet, after all.
All right, so there is our hook. We're going to have the students go through this haunted museum. Whoops.
Nestled in the back.
Play that again. As we continue,
Backwoods of
let me read. I don't know why I can't. There we go. As we continue, we're going to encounter some portraits. And so it's like an escape room activity, essentially. Now, the students will begin by meeting Madame Joffrin, who was an influential woman during this era, hosted many of the Enlightenment thinkers in her salon where they would share ideas. And we want to give the students some background information before they just start going throughout the mansion. So we're going to provide them access to the reading. Now, when they click the reading here, they'll see that they have the introduction available, section 1 and section 7 of the text. Because in our video activities, one of the things that will happen is that your students will have access to the very same reading that we use for the regular lesson. And that's why it's so flexible and it can be used in so many different ways. So the students will be able to reference the text, and then they're going to answer some text-based questions immediately. And so here's where we can begin to collect some data. And let's try to answer a few of these together here and use our collective genius so that we can get these correct. So the Enlightenment took place in the 16 and 1700s, 17 and 1800s, 18 and 1900s. Use the chat, the Zoom chat, and you tell me which one you think it is. 16, 17, 18 to 17, 18, or 1900s.
I mean, we have a pretty standard across the board, 17 to 1800s.
But that's wrong. You did hear somebody say the 17th and 18th century, but you got to remember the century you count back. So which one is it?
And here we go, 16 and 17.
It's the 16 and 1700s. All right, so Enlightenment thinkers were inspired by the American Revolution, the French Revolution, or the Scientific Revolution. Oh, Emmeline's already, she's already hopping, she's all in on the Scientific Revolution. Let's go ahead and see if Evelyn, right, we're in the gifted class here. That's awesome. All right, number 3, many Enlightenment thinkers believe that blank natural, physical, or supernatural laws would tell us how to live. I see lots of natural. Let's try it out. Good, we got it correct. This one, we've got to pick 2. So we got to put it together. Enlightenment thinkers inspired the so-called Enlightenment philosophers, monarchs, despots in Prussia, Russia, and Austria. Ooh, this was challenging. If you teach world history, you could probably get it. If you didn't, you know what a student might do? If it were me, I would close this up. I think I would go back to my reading here, and I would go back and I would read through and say, oh, you know what? I think now, after reading that, I actually think it might be the despots. Yeah. So let's come back. Let's go into our answer. Let's try that out now. So unless but enlightened despots. I only got half of it right. Guess what? Because I didn't complete it down here. So Enlightenment thinkers are also inspired the men behind and I'll help you out here. We're going to say American Revolution. And then down here, I'm going to put in some answers real quick. The United States Constitution is that one. And we're going to say France in 1789. We're going to hit submit. And guess what? We can go back here and we can see that we have all these correct. This little check mark right here will help the student to know whether or not they've answered all the questions or not. So if they see a check right there, they've answered all the questions and they can continue on. Very soon, and I'll talk more about it in coming attractions, we're actually going to have these slideshows be lockable so that the only way that students can progress is if they answer questions. And it'll be a feature that you can toggle off if you want, but that way there'll be some conditional responses. In other words, they'll only be able to move ahead if they've done X, Y, and Z. Now, we're going to go back into it as a student here. So let's say that we've done the background work here and we're ready to continue. Now we can move ahead. And Madame Joffrin, who we see here as a spectral, she's telling us that it's now time to eat, to meet her honored and quite haunted guests. She's going to introduce us to 9 key thinkers during the Enlightenment. And if we please them, they'll let us pass. So let's meet the very first one, which is Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes, now we need to learn about him through a couple of different things. We're going to listen to the haunted portrait of Thomas Hobbes. We're going to then read section 2, and then we're going to answer some more text-based questions. So let's do that first, and we'll do it in order. Let's listen to Thomas Hobbes.
I was born in England in 1588. After studying mathematics and science, I was inspired to take a scientific approach to the problems of human society. After the brutal execution of King Charles and the ensuing chaos, I came to believe that governments were created to protect people from their own selfishness. Without an absolute ruler like a monarch, people would always be in conflict. They would be in such a state of nature that life would be nasty, brutish, and short.
So we've met Thomas Hobbes now. It's almost like you've stepped into, what is it, the Haunted Mansion out there with you, Kelsey, close to Disneyland, right? Don't they have
that is definitely giving me that vibe as we're going through, for sure. Yep.
Or you go to Hogwarts down there in Orlando, and you see
the little Harry Potter action. Absolutely.
Yeah, a little bit of that going on too, that we have. So then we could read section 2, right? We might even turn on our main idea viewer, so that we can really focus in on the key ideas, what is oftentimes the testable content in the sections, and then answer some text-based questions. Now, I'm not going to bore you by answering a bunch of questions here, but just note, I will say this in general, that it's not always fill in the blank. As you can see here, there's multiple choice. There's going to be drag and drop. There's writing. There's some drawing prompts in there. So there'll be a variety of response types and sometimes stimuli or provided where the students can click in, especially like in a geography lesson where they might view additional maps as part of answering a question. So they'll continue on. And after each one of these, they will meet each of these 9 influential thinkers of the Enlightenment. Let's do one more. I'll do the last one before we would wrap it up so that you get a sense of kind of how each of them look and are. And so, yeah, let's do this one, Mary Wollstonecraft here. So let's listen to Mary.
As an English writer, I published an essay in 1792 in which I argued that women deserve the same rights and opportunities as men. I said, let woman share the rights, and she will emulate the virtues of men, for she must grow more perfect when emancipated. I believed that education was the key to gaining equality and freedom, and I called for reforms to grant women the same education as men.
Now, I saw somebody ask the question, and this is a good time to answer it right here, is Spanish captions, and not just Spanish captions, but audio is also included with all of the videos that we produce. So when we make a video activity, whether it's myself or Bert or some of the other video activity developers, when we create these, there's concurrent development going on to where they're created so that people who need to hear it and see it in English also can get a chance to be able to hear it and see it in Spanish too. And that includes the captions there at the bottom. Just note when you're in your account, so if you toggle over into Spanish, like I did right there, and then you open up the video activity, I'll give you a sense of what it's like, maybe just a little bit of that first video.
Ubicado en los bosques de la campiña inglesa, se encuentra el Museo de Pensadores Iluminados de Medianoche. Es un nombre.
I got to be honest with you. I like his voice better than mine doing that. So
I was honestly just thinking the same thing. That was we're on the same page. That was awesome.
He does a better me than me. So I love that. That's great. Now, at the end of video activities, one of the things that we always like to do, as we do with our classroom activity, And you should know this, especially if you're new to TCI, we are strong believers in the spiral curriculum, that you start simple and you build to complex. So we want to finish this activity with a higher order thinking activity, a more challenging, more rigorous exercise. So here in the wrap up, the students will see 8 of the 9 portraits, and they will have a short bio statement, autobiographical statement by each one of these people. But what they'll have to do is they'll have to drag them into the proper placement. So I remember Madame Joffrin, she's the one that hosted all these people. I know from Baron de Montesquieu that he believed and argued in a division of government. I think this fellow right here, I think he was all about the speedy trial. Where's Voltaire? I remember him talking about tolerance and the Declaration of Rights and of a woman and the female citizen. I might need to come back to that one. Social contract, that's Locke. Future president, oh, that's Abigail Adams. She laid down the law. I believe that education was the key. I remember now. I think this is it. So let me go ahead and hit submit. We find out that we're correct. And then we're able to continue to the end. We've escaped from the room. So there you have it. This is a video activity. This is what it's like. But here's the really cool thing is no two are exactly alike. They sometimes have very different feels about them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some additional information about when you could use them, how and where to use them with students. So we'll get into all of that next. But before I do that, are there any questions that, Kelsey, you want me to answer before I do that?
Honestly, at this point, we've answered the questions. We're good to go. So keep it rolling.
All right, perfect. So let's come back and let's talk a little bit about these video activities and kind of when, where, and how. These activities, like I said, they're going to help you break the mold. I should have waited to say that statement before I shared this slide here, because this helps to kind of show you a little bit of what you did in the icebreaker, that each one of those activities we have a video activity for. So if you teach high school U.S. history, we have a Great Depression lesson where the students step into the role of a screenwriter who's writing for a movie of that era. You can take a cinematic flyover of the Silk Road. We had a lot of folks that wanted to take those tours of the Civil War battlefields, learn from the national park experts. That's what we have in our middle school U.S. history program. Or maybe you want students to be able to see some really great vintage presidential ads, especially as we're entering into that season right now already, on vintage TV sets. Who wouldn't love to do that? Or take a road trip with their buddies around the country. Of course, talk about economics while you're doing it at the same time, or play a geocache game to find hidden objects. So those are really going to help you to break the mold. Let's now talk the when, the where, the how. So when is the best time to use a video activity? Well, let me put your mind at ease. There's not a correct or incorrect response here. And I'm going to give you several examples, because when we initially created these, when we started to develop the very first video activities for middle school, our thought was, at that time, it was during the pandemic, and we saw this as an opportunity to provide teachers an answer to having to go out and create something from scratch in Edpuzzle or Nearpod or Pear Deck, that instead of having to do that, that they would be able to come to a trusted provider when it comes to content with a really great activity. So our idea would be that we were trying to create an asynchronous activity, but we found as teachers started to use them, they were using them in lots of different ways. Some teachers like to use these to pre-teach the content. So before doing the lesson, the classroom activity on the Enlightenment, that the teachers might have them do the Haunted Museum, that might be something that they would do to pre-teach that content and get the students at least some baseline of what they need to know. Other teachers, they see these video activities and what screams to them is, thank God I've got a plan here for a sub. Finally, I've got a sub plan that's easy because I can assign these. The data comes back to me as a teacher for each of the students that does these individually. It's a perfect sub plan. So maybe that's what you're thinking. Other teachers look at them and they use them to review content. So instead of pre-teaching it, they would use the video activity after the classroom activity was complete, but before the summative assessment, as a way for students to be able to review, almost like a review game, depending on what kind of video activity it is. Others look at it as an opportunity to use it for remediation. So maybe you go from the classroom activity and the students taking their content related notes to taking a summative assessment and realizing that, hey, across the board, there's some work that needs to be done before I feel really good to move ahead. So let's go ahead and do some remediation, but instead of having it feel like a punishment to my students, provide them an activity that will really provide them some guided remediation so that we can push forward and feel confident. It doesn't matter if you decide you want to use them individually, because you can do that. You can assign them to a specific student. You can put them in small groups where the class is broken up in 3s and 4s, and you have them have a video activity open and they're working through together as a troop. That's fine too. We hear that all the time. And there's others. I've got a good friend who's one of our trainers and a classroom teacher in Florida, Kathleen Garrity. Some of you might know her or been or might meet her today if you go into one of the sessions she leads. She likes to play the video activities with her whole class, where she will project the video. And then when it comes time for the students to answer the questions, what she'll do is she'll have the students get like a little dry erase board, the little whiteboards out, and they will write their answers on that. And then she'll count down from 3 to 1, and they'll all hold up what they think the correct response is. And she awards points in a whole class setting. So again, there's not a right or wrong answer when it comes to when you're going to be using these or the configuration. They can be used in place of classroom activities. Now, I say that knowing that that's our favorite thing. That's what led me from the classroom to TCI, were those hands-on classroom activities. So we don't ever want to leave those behind, but let's be real that there are some times where you're pressed for time and that you may not have time to be able to do everything in the classroom activity. Well, the benefit of the video activities are that it has the very same reading. It has lots of opportunities for the students to answer questions and get immediate feedback. And then you're able to get all of that data. So it absolutely could be used in place of if you ever feel like you have to do that. So there's lots of ways that you can use it. Maybe you've got, especially for those of you who've joined our session and maybe started to use video activities last year or even the year prior, because that was the first time that we started to release just a few of them. If you've got a favorite way that you like to use them, why don't you share that in the chat? Meanwhile, I'm going to pause just for a moment here, take a sip. Kelsey, are there any questions that I should stop and focus on?
Yeah, well, I love probably 1 second after you asked me last time, we had like 12 questions in the chat. So I was like, perfect. But what's awesome is you actually answered quite a few of them going through, because there's lots of questions about, how would you use this? So you already walked through that. I see in the chat, like Janet specifically talked about like a review is how she uses it. So I love that. I think that's awesome. One of the questions I've seen a couple times in Q&A and in the chat, the option to make the kids do the questions before moving on. When do we see that coming into play?
It's going to come into play very soon. So I'll tease you a little bit on the coming attractions part. Is we're going to be releasing that probably within the next month to 2 months, that you'll start to see those begin to trickle out. Most of the lessons will end up having that applied to them. As one of the developers on these, when we created them, we knew that was a limitation. At the time, we didn't have a way to be able to keep the students from working ahead. So we tried in a lot of ways to avoid giving away the ahas. but also knowing that we weren't going to let that hold us back, that eventually we would overcome that hurdle and be able to create a stop and go kind of conditional response. So that's why so many of these video activities are just amazing. But they'll all get that treatment essentially. And what we're thinking is that it would be a feature that you would be able to toggle off if you don't want the students to have that conditional response to, so that if you want it to be more like what it is right now, that you would be able to do that. So we are kind of envisioning that there'll be some sort of a setting that you'll be able to use within the platform to do that. Kelsey?
Yeah. No, and I was just going to say, Brian, what I love is like keep that feedback coming right to us as a team. We love to hear those things. And I'm going to put a little plug in for my session later today about our new coach program, because that is kind of one of the tenets of that program. We really want to have more just teacher feedback, things that you want to see. So we love that. So keep sending that in to us. There was a question specifically here. I've seen Matthew's got some good things that he's got in the chat, questions about, I don't even know what this is, using Magic School. Brian, is that something that you're using? I don't know.
I don't know what Magic School is. I wonder if he's referring to the videos themselves in that haunted lesson.
Maybe.
So there is what struck me about how I got to writing that activity that way is there. My mom is she is like a layperson genealogist. And I think it was ancestry.com or something like that. I saw that you could put in a picture and that you could bring an ancestor to life through uploading a picture. And I thought, wouldn't that be cool if we could do that with some of the portraits and some of the pictures that we have in the program? And we found a tool called HeyGen out there. It's a website where it's very similar to Ancestry and that allows you to be able to do that. And we had a lot of fun with it. Yeah, so we're always looking for new tools that we could implement in helping us to make these video activities. And it's lots of fun to do that.
Awesome. And I see, I'm going to hit you with one more question and then we'll come back, but just lots of people asking about, hey, where am I going to see more of these, particularly in geography, right? So like, what does that look like? And I know the answer is, good news, but I'll let you share it.
It's all good news. And well, heck. So I'll come back to nuts and bolts. Let's put a pin right here and we'll come back to nuts and bolts. And I'm going to skip to coming soon. Okay.
I think that because we've got a lot of questions about that. So I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. So the good news is every lesson in every middle and high school social studies program will have a video activity. Now these take some time for us to roll out. I'll just give you an idea of like that lesson on the haunted mansion. Lots of hands were in the creation of just that one lesson. So yeah, I helped to develop and create slides for it and show a storyline of what I want to happen. But then it takes videographers, it takes editors, it takes software engineers to make all that magic happen. So we work together as a team. But we are committed to making sure that every one of those lessons in your program will have them. Now, our third edition middle school programs, we're nearly there. We're nearly there. In fact, the Ancient World, if you have the third edition to that, there is a video activity for every one of the lessons in there right now. The World through 1750, we're getting close. We're getting really close. On the development side, it's all done. Middle school U.S. history, the United States through industrialism, there's one for every lesson in there. Now, some of the second edition programs, because California, that's the adopted program there for middle school social studies, there may not be one yet there for every lesson, but we're quickly adding those. The high school programs, there's probably one per unit right now, but we continue to crank them out. And what you actually see here on my screen is just a little bit of a tease on some ones that are coming. For example, in the World Through 1750 program, when the students are learning about the scientific revolution, they're actually going to be entering into a pizza parlor whose owner is all about the people of the scientific revolution. and that they have pizza pies named after their famous contributions. And what the students will do is, as they're learning about Galileo or Copernicus, for example, they will have to read the menu at the very end and figure out which pizza is connected to which person from the scientific revolution. And if they do that, they get a free pizza pie. Who wouldn't like that? Somebody asked a question about geography. So we are continuing to build additional video activities for the Geography Alive program. You'll see it right now for lesson 1 and lesson 4, but very soon we'll actually have a bunch more that are currently in development. This is one on the national parks, where the students go to spend their summer with their uncle, who has a souvenir shop, and they're selling postcards to national parks, and they're going to try to help him sort those postcards out. But at the same time, they're learning about the national parks of the United States and Canada, but also learning how to be able to read a topographic map. In Econ Alive, we're going to have a video activity on taxes and taxation, where the students are trying to help the FBI nab a small town mobster named Numbers Pazula, who's a little bit like Al Capone, and they're going to try to get him on tax evasion. So they're going to have to analyze all sorts of evidence and pieces like that. In our high school US program, when the students learn about ending the Cold War, we take them back in time into like a little 8-bit setup of a video game that's unfolding, where there's conditional actions that they respond to. So if they answer something wrong, maybe they don't get to where they're thinking they should go. The mystery that I alluded to in the icebreaker, when the students in Geography Alive, when they learn about the geography of Europe and Russia, it's almost like they're stepping into a book from Agatha Christie, that they're going to be taking a trip down the Danube and trying to figure out who stole a piece of art in Geneva, Switzerland. So that'll be lots of fun. And then we also have a lesson in our government program where the students are going to be in the position of a photo editor, and they have to select a cover that's going to go on the magazine named Lead. And they're going to be learning about chief executives and bureaucracies, but at the same time, they're going to get an opportunity to be able to put a little magazine cover together. So lots of different ideas. We've got lots of different developers working on these now, and we're really, really excited. There's more to come in terms of new interactions. We'll have new response types. Some of the page layout will get a little bit better in terms of where we can put drag and drops and things like that. But obviously the biggest one for us right now is being able to provide conditional actions so that the students can progress at the pace that we intend when we develop these. So that's some of the coming more and coming soon. Any questions on that, Kels?
Honestly, no, I think you answered them. I mean, people are excited. I love, Kelly said, am I the only one who wants to do video activities for other curricula that they don't teach? And I think that is true. Like looking at all of these things, right? So many exciting things and so many fun things. And that is just another awesome thing about TCI is we're always listening to your feedback and trying to put out these awesome activities. So keep it coming, keep the feedback. I've said that to a couple people in the chat and the Q&A. We love to hear that. So
I love to hear it too. It keeps me employed. So
yeah, totally.
Definitely keep it coming. You know, when we first started development on these, our thought was just going to be that it was for middle school and middle school only. And then we realized, no, actually high school could benefit from this. And we've been talking about elementary as well. So we're kind of already there with you. It's just a matter of needing to jump when everybody tells us to. So definitely keep those comments coming for us. All right, so let me come back. I want to make sure that I share just some nuts and bolts information on where you locate these, how you assign it, where the data comes for you and for your students when they do a video activity. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into teachtci.com. and open up my account, and I'm going to open up, let's say, the Ancient World program. That's going to be my model here. Let's say that I am currently teaching something on ancient Rome, right? And maybe we're close to the end of that unit. Maybe it's lesson 42 here, the legacy of Rome in the modern world. So when you are at your lesson overview page, so it'll be beneath the planning area, you'll see in the flexible lesson options that you have this tile over here on the right that says video activity. Now you get a brief description of it right here. And then underneath, you've got some additional icons to look at. One, which is to click play, will open it up in a brand new tab on your browser or your student's browser. The other is to assign it to your students. So when you click that calendar icon, it's like a shortcut in that it fills out the what details for you. All you then need to do is to focus on who you want to assign it to, when you want it to be due, or if you want to schedule something for later, and then assign it to your class. Also note, you can edit these. So just like our classroom activity slideshow, let's say you don't want to have the students do every slide that's in there right now. And this is one of the workarounds that some teachers have used because we didn't have those conditional actions yet, is that they were going in and they were just saying, well, you know what, I'm going to make, a couple of different versions of this, and I'm going to delete all the slides that I don't want them to have access to. So when you go in and you edit the slideshow, it's a lot like editing a slideshow for the classroom activity. Here in just a moment, we'll see on my screen what will happen is that we'll get like a view of these in an edit mode, not too unlike Google Slides or PowerPoint when you have it opened up. And it's taken a little while, and I think it's because I've got Zoom and all these other things that are running here in the background. Kelly's saying I have limited time. Oh, no, when you have limited time. Oh, okay. I got you. So now you can see it here in edit mode. So maybe I don't like that overview. Maybe I want to change that to something else. I can do that. When I do this, when I go here and I edit an existing slideshow, couple things to note, it does not overwrite the original. So you'll always be able to, if I go back to my video activity, you'll always be able to open up the original right here. But just like your classroom activity, when you make one-off versions of it, just note right up here, and I'll zoom in so that you can see it a little bit better. If you click on my slideshows, you'll see it right here. And then you can open it back up and edit, or you could assign it and give that to your students right there. Now, when they complete a video activity, just like any lesson game, just like any summative assessment, just like any reading check or anything like that, it's all going to appear for you as a column in your grades. So when you go to grades, and I have a sample class right here, you would see their data begin to fill in. Let's say this, where it says video game, let's just imagine, or vocabulary game, let's imagine that said video activity, because that's what it would be. It would be an additional column, and it would say video activity, and we would see a score in for Boo Boo Bear and Yogi and Tweety and whatever. And then you could go in and you could view individual responses, or you could even view them as a class. You can view the trends to see what would be the weak areas that maybe students had. So that data will all come automatically into your grades. And if you're already hooked up through either Google Classroom or Canvas or Schoology, then those scores automatically get sent to there too. So just keep that in mind. And I believe we actually have some sessions on for the conference here today on integrating with learning management systems. So if that's something that interests you, be looking at your agenda and see what sessions might be there. All right. With that being said, I know that we've got to be close on time, Kels, right? So
I know I was going to give you the 2-minute warning. Can you believe that? Time is flying.
Time is flying. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up here to any last questions before we kind of put a bow tie on it and send you on to the second period.
Yeah, a couple of questions about translations, actually. So like if you go in there and you edit a slide, say, and you change it, will that still translate? That is something that's come up a couple times.
Yes, I believe it will, because
Yep.
the translation is automatic
Yep.
on any kind of text that is changed. Where it won't change it, obviously, would be, you know, any of the audio or video that's perhaps embedded.
Totally. And then another question about in terms of point values, like, can that be adjusted for the video activities?
Yeah, just it's no different than any other activity at TCI. You can absolutely go in there and change the point values on grades. And one of the things I would say about that is, if you know, if you're really thinking, hey, I need to see some of how these grades and data look like, and you're new to TCI, or perhaps you've used this for a while, but maybe you've forgotten some of that. There is, in the PD area, you will see an assign and grade course. It's shorter. You don't have to do all of it. Just focus on that one or two or three areas that you are most interested in seeing, and you'll see that come to life there. Is through that assign and grade course. You can actually see it modeled for you.
Awesome. Some other things, I mean, pacing, you know, how much would you usually spend on a lesson, on one of these video lessons?
Yeah, that is a really good question, because when we first started development, our idea was that we would only create them so that they could be done in a half an hour or less. That is not the case now. We have some of them, like the one on the Danube, which is a mystery that I wrote. You know, it would take as long to be able to do that. If a student spent, say, 20 minutes a day for, you know, 2 or 3 days, yeah, you know, so it's more in line. Some of them are more in line with 60 minutes to 90 minutes. Some of them are very short. Some of them could be done in, you know, 30 minutes. It just really depends, because we put the reading in there, the same reading that would be in the classroom activity. That obviously isn't accounting, you know, how much time the students are spending reading. So some of them could be longer, some could be shorter, just like our regular classroom activities are.
Awesome. And I think you pretty much answered everything. And I love, because people are answering each other's questions in the chat. So I love that as well. And it's perfect because we are now a minute over, and we want to make sure we give everyone an opportunity to get to their next class period. So Brian, I don't know if we want to go through maybe how to do that, just so everyone knows, and then
Yep,
send them off.
absolutely. So if you want to give us a quick reflection, how you felt about today's session, if you're loving it, you're happy about it, you're blown away, or maybe you're pensive, you're thinking about it, or you're just sweating it because you're thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to be in my class 20 days from now or 10 days from now.
Brian, did you pick those emojis because they look like you? Is that what it was? Like, those are all
You mean
the
they're
Brian?
handsome and beautiful?
Yes,
And
Brad
yeah,
Pitt. That was
exactly.
what I was figuring. Okay,
That's right.
perfect.
So thank you again. Share with us in the Summit 24 your favorite takeaway. Here's what's coming up for period 2. These are the sessions that are going to be going on. Don't forget that you're going to leave this meeting. You're going to go to the lobby, and then you're going to be looking for second period. You're going to join one of those, and you're going to do the very same thing. So I think with that being said, let's go ahead and hop to it. Gang, thank you so much. Kelsey, thank you for being here with me. I appreciate you and appreciate your genius that you provide.
Listen, thanks for putting up with me. So I appreciate that. And I'm going to put if I can find the link, back to the main sessions in the chat for everyone, so that everybody can go back and join as well. So I'll drop that in the chat, and have a great summit, everybody.